I'll begin. So, good evening, everyone. Thank you for registering and making it here. Before beginning the session, I want to introduce our book club. Uh, we basically started this 2 months ago with an idea to read nonfiction and able to engage with the discourse and also argue effectively when uh, ideas and opinions are packaged into deals on social media. With that, we had 2 sessions before, and this is the third session. We are so glad for Sir for accepting our invitation. And this session, for this session, my friend Charan will be heading it. So, some rules here: if all of you are muted, only if you raise your hand, you will be able to. I'll be able to approve you, and you will be able to unmute yourself. You also have the chat option. You can put your questions or discussions there. And now I'll ask Charan to take over the session. Thank you, Charan, and thank you, Ilaiah, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Bhavani, and thanks Telugu Reading Circle for arranging this interesting talk by Professor Kancha Ilaiah. It's my honor to be part of this program to engage with Professor Kancha. Yeah, Professor Kancha, I don't think anybody of us required to be introduced, but most of us have been engaging with his articles in different newspapers, academic journals, and his challenging texts, which appear in all the popular Indian media and all the academic journals. The current text that we are going to deal with by engaging with Professor Kancha is Buffalo Nationalism, which has been published by Samya Publications in 2004. It's a collection of multiple articles published in various mainstream English publications. The book deals with the questions pertaining to the Brahminical imaginations of Indian nationalism, which goes against the very idea of materialistic and subaltern cultures and production communities, which excludes the dignity and the production orientation of the Dalit Bahujan communities. Professor Kancha Ilaiah has been in the news for his views, has been challenged, criticized, understood, and misunderstood. However, Professor Kancha has been very vocal about his views and altering the discussions pertaining to the Indian democracy, Indian social structure. Ilaiah has renamed himself to Professor Kancha Ilaiah Shepherd. By doing that, he not just aestheticized his name, but also given a resisting symbol against the Brahminical impression of the names of the Indian lower caste communities. With this brief introduction, I invite Professor Kancha Ilaiah to take us through his prominent and prolific book, Buffalo Nationalism, by contextualizing it in the contemporary times. Thank you, Professor Shepherd, for joining us. I invite you to take us through this, sir. I can't hear you. Anybody of you can hear?
Yeah. No. Okay, Charan, are you still in Germany or here?
Yeah, I'm in Germany, sir.
Okay, how long you are going to be there?
A few more months, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, anyway, thanks for this organizing both for you and Bhavani. Now, I thought that first you discuss those of you who read the book, because it's basically a reading club. But I'll briefly introduce about the book. I think all of you must have seen the book, and its Kindle version is available online,
Yes.
and it is also the cover. And though the print version is now, new print version is coming out, because after 2018 Sage publication, and Sage got closed its publishing house in India in 2022. Since then, the book is physical copy is not available, but the soft copy is available. Now, this book, actually, as Charan said, is a compilation of my several articles wrote in newspapers like The Hindu, Times of India, Indian Express, Deccan Chronicle, Deccan Herald, and also Economic and Political Weekly, Mainstream, and so on. I think the present last chapter is from the Where Are the Shudras, is a newly added chapter in the last edition of 2021 or so, when it was still with Sage. Now, the title of the book, of course, comes from 2-3 of my articles in newspapers. One actually was published in Midday from Bombay in the context of a debate about the cow sacredness and how cow was becoming an animal of conflicts between the RSS, BJP political forces and the Muslims. So I wrote that article with a kind of experience that how come that these people call cow as sacred. And then I was on the English TV channels for the debate. Even the most senior RSS BJP spokespersons on national media like NDTV, at that time Times Now, CNN, and so on, they were saying that cow is a sacred animal for Hindus because its milk, it gives milk to India.
Right.
Now, I was asking in one of the discussions, now what about buffalo milk? What is the quantity of buffalo milk that India drinks from tribal areas to cities, and the children to elders? And what is the cow milk? Now, by then there was this internet available, so they were firmly arguing that no, cow milk is like mother's milk. That is what people drink. Buffalo milk is only a marginal thing. Then I have shown no. India drinks about 53% of milk comes from buffaloes. And village children and elders for curd, for buttermilk, for even ghee, everything mostly comes from buffalo milk. And buffaloes were also used as plow animals. The male and the female ones are basically used for procreating their species and milk and so on.
Yes.
So I wrote 2-3 articles, but then when the compilation was done, so they were asking me, what title would you like to have to this? But then I was thinking that no, actually there is a animal that needs to be called Indian national animal. It is buffalo, not cow or any other animal. Now, why did they deny that recognition in the books, in the day-to-day life discourses written? Or if you look back to your own school education background, whenever teacher asked to write an essay, invariably the first topic they give to students is write an essay on cow. So even that was my experience. They were asking to write an essay on cow only. So then I thought, why this discrimination of animals, which do more or less the same functions, but one animal is more in number and gives more milk and so on and so forth. And later on, when I traveled abroad, like USA, Europe, and so on, even Africa, I went to only South Africa once. I didn't see buffaloes, but there were buffalo restaurants where buffalo meat is sold there and served there, but it's very costly. So Americans, obviously in the migration process, killed all the native buffaloes. Now, how come that this animal got domesticated in this country? At what time it was domesticated, and then it was trained as agrarian animal, and then milk production, and then the whole life of humans was closely interrelated to buffalo. Then I found out that even by the time of building up Harappan city civilization, there was no cow in India. So, but by then, the Indians in the Indus Valley region had a very advanced domesticated buffalo economy. Sheep, goat, of course, chicken and other. But unfortunately, nobody wrote about how people domesticated these animals, and particularly buffalo. Now I wrote a fictional story. It will come out into a book. How difficult it was to domesticate buffalo. The other question that struck was why is it that buffalo is not written about in the books, not respected, not cared, but in the villages, every house will have a buffalo. And in fact, as an economic animal, people ask at the time of marriages, even in Dalit houses, Shudra, OBC houses. More so, Dalits, in my childhood, Dalits here and there would have buffaloes in front of their houses, but mostly they were agrarian labor. At best, their animal ownership is occasionally a buffalo, or mostly chicken around. That's all. So, but OBCs and other Shudras, certainly not Brahmins and Banyas, they see buffalo as a economic property. Even in the marriage times, how many buffaloes that family owns is a factor. And buffalo giving in dowry, giving buffalo as a dowry animal is also there.
Right.
So why this animal is completely neglected by Brahmin writers? From Vedas to Ramayana to Mahabharata, it doesn't appear. Any Sanskrit, leave alone that even the post-colonial times writing. Nobody wrote about the contribution of buffalo as an animal. Why? I mean, then it struck me because it's a black animal. So, though it gives white milk, though its skin is used for leather and bones are used for all economic instruments and so on, like any cow or so. So, on the contrary, cow, bull, even horse is a lot written about animal and praised and its sturdiness, its strength. So I suggested my publisher that then I plan to write an introduction. If you read the introduction, that will show you why I brought in.
Right.
So I worked out a strategy that, along with the human untouchability around Dalits and discrimination and oppression around OBCs and other castes, denying education to Shudras altogether, whether they are Reddis, Kamas, whatever, or the priesthood roles and Sanskrit. The reason seemed that there is a similar pattern the way they treated the Shudra Dalits and the buffaloes. So then I looked into religion and the spiritual cultures of different religions and how they looked at animals and so on. So I suggested it should be Buffalo Nation. But by then, my Why I'm Not a Hindu book was published by the same people, and it was the bestseller, and they were making a lot of money on that. They said this title won't gel in the market. People don't like it because people are used to respecting cow only as a nationalist animal. So
Right.
we don't want to risk market. I said, no, I'm willing to take the risk. You just at least print 500 copies. If they don't sell, then at least I will buy them and then let us see what happens. So a lot of back and forth discussion took place between me and the editors and publishers and so on. Finally, they agreed to the title that Buffalo Nationalism, a discourse in spiritual fascism.
Right.
So now this central idea, the book has various articles. Actually, in Hindu, after Why I'm Not a Hindu was published, for the first time a woman editor took over that, called Malini Pardasarathi. She asked me to write once in fortnight a column, and I started writing around 97. And it was in those columns I examined the role of there are 2-3 articles, Brahmanism as title article, and they face a lot of backlash, including the entire Tamil Brahmins and outsiders, and including Shankaracharya, pressurized them to stop my. So, how Brahmanism has destroyed the productivity of the nation, and the idea of not only human but animal inequality has a deeper economic, social implication.
Right.
So Malini went on publishing, then I started writing in Deccan Herald regularly, a column in once in fortnight. And then at that time, there was an editor in Deccan Chronicle called Jayanti. So she
Yeah.
also asked me to write a column almost a week. I said, I can't write every week. So she said, okay, whenever you write, at least one in fortnight. So there I wrote several articles till Narendra Modi became Prime Minister. BJP pressurized them to stop my column. So one article which became a major controversy thing, its title emerged from this book, Spiritual Fascism and Civil Society. And at that time that Vidyasagar Rao was Home Minister, he asked Osmania Vice Chancellor to give me a notice and, if possible, suspend me for that. They gave me a notice not to write in newspapers, create conflicts in society. But media and organizations hugely opposed, protests happened. There was an attack on VC compound, actually. A lot of people jumped in. So finally, media demanded that such a restriction is not correct. So they had to bow down and remove that notice. Now, the articles, if you see from spiritual systems to economic dimensions to social inequality to the alternatives available for the human beings in India to establish a casteless, a man-woman equal society with a productive knowledge growing from various quarters. So the book quite accidentally did very well, and it became bestseller that year, slowly, not as quickly as Why I'm Not a Hindu. But in academic institutions, the upper caste sociologists, upper caste political thinkers certainly got attracted to the idea, particularly those who were engaging with the secularism issue, let's say vis-a-vis RSS, BJP, because this was published in 2004, just after the Vajpayee government lost the election. So it was basically a UPA period. And in many universities, more than Why I'm Not a Hindu, Buffalo Nationalism was taught, discussed, even in journalism courses, articles were analyzed in sociology, even in history, that how should we look at the history of animals in it, and religion.
Right.
why Hinduism went into this kind of animal discriminative discourses. Now, at the same time, what is the relationship between untouchability, caste, and buffalo's negligence, absence of buffalo in our history? So now, I think later on I went back into ancient period, the animal economic processes that happened. So I realized that after that, some good books on migrations in India came. For example, Tony Joseph's Early Indians book, and several others in the Israeli philosopher's book, Sapiens, Harari.
Right.
So in most of those books, I found that there is a major relationship between human civilization and animals. And in India, buffalo certainly played a key role. And then I went back to Harappan and pre-Harappan times. And it appears that the Harappans used it, domesticated before that, used it as the main economic animal during the city civilization building. Sheep and goat were meat economies, but not labor. So labor and war animal was he-buffalo. So the gap between Harappan city civilization and the Aryan migration is 1500 years. So then I carefully studied the migration processes. So obviously the Aryans who migrated from, some of them from Central Asia, some from German region,
Right.
with horses as riding animals, cow and bull as food animals. So they came with those animals and they had an advantage of iron as against the native people's metal was only bronze. So
Right.
when the war took place between the Harappans and the Aryan migrants in subsequent periods, they used buffalo as war animal, which is very sturdy, strong, but its running capacity is much lesser than horse. So the
Right.
speed and the body reflections of horse and buffalo are totally different. And they used iron arrows, bows and arrows, whereas the Harappans did not have that iron tools. So they
Right.
seem to have lost the war. And after that, quite a lot of migration to South India from that region, along with buffaloes, sheep, goat, on the Godavari and Krishna river basins. So therefore you can see names like Appa in Krishna basin, in Godavari basin, gods named Ramappa or Birappa. And then animal economy is central in this region. Most of the gods and goddesses have animal economic. So the buffalo ownership and buffalo population is very high in Bihar, UP, Haryana, Punjab, and up to Gujarat and Maharashtra. And then in South India, up to Tamil Nadu. Kerala, it has registered not much population. So Tamil Nadu, it has a huge Buffalo population. So the entire argument in the book is that Hindu religion, being as centrally controlled by a small group of Brahmins who did not want to do productive work but survived as agents of God between the slave Dravidians and native people, and also even people like Banyas for some time. So they wrote books, they propagated only cow as a great animal. Cow was never a divine animal till the freedom struggle campaign. It was a food animal even for Brahmins for a long time. So you can see in the Vedic Ramayana Mahabharata period as well. So therefore now for the younger people, those who want to read this book seriously, and also my other books, now I have recently done a book called The Shudra Rebellion, where I go back to the Harappan civilization and why they made bricks at that time, wood crafting, canal digging. Until today in the villages, the Shudra Dalit economy is that economy functions with the same kind of bricks we use, the same kind of canals we dig, tanks we build, and houses we construct, and so on, have very common roots and relations with the Harappan urban civilization. So therefore, my feeling for those of you who want to read this book, so one of the problems is we don't have reading habit now. Even in universities, students read what is required for their coursework, but we need to read books. I mean, most of my books are not based on other books. I have done on my PhD thesis on Gautam Buddha's political philosophy based on the suttas, pitakas, and Sanskrit texts, Kautilya's Ardhashastra, contrasted them and so on.
Right.
But otherwise, I write from people's life and careful study of their proverbs, their philosophy, and their relationship to animals, their use of animals, and the ecology in which they live and how they change the nature into the production, the goods and commodities. So my last point is that you have to read a lot. The books that Ambedkar wrote essentially from a critical theoretical point of view as he studied abroad and got influenced with the Western methodologies. So he studied a lot of books and then critiqued them or approved them, whether in terms of annihilation of caste or over the Shudras or Buddha and Dhamma, any of his writings. But the fundamental book I see is the Over the Shudras. It was the first book on Shudras, though it didn't go into animal economic dimension, but certainly reviewed the entire Vedic literature, Ramayana, Mahabharata, to understand the Shudra status. And nobody else has written later. So now I brought out two books. One is the latest one, Shudra Rebellion, which has come into Hindi now. Telugu is being launched on 21st in Hyderabad Book Fair. So Hindi version is already launched in Patna Book Fair. So I think you have to read and get back to the roots of the villages, study their relationship with animals, and then see the hatred of the Brahminic and also even the Western whites, hatred of black color, and then how history has been negotiating with blackness, whether
Right.
it is America, Europe, and now in India around
Right.
the Buffalo as an animal. Yeah.
Right.
I'll stop here.
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you, Professor, for such a provocative, re-exploration of your work. And pertaining to the book, although the book was published initially in 2004, I think I would say that the ideas that most of the articles discuss continue to resonate with the contemporary debates that Indian academia and people in general are facing. One of the articles which was published exactly 23 years ago in the Hindu, uh, the consequences of Sudarshan's epic war, in which you have discusses the how the OBCs are being mobilized for against the Babri, for their program against the demolition of the Babri, and while all the upper caste Brahmins are motivating and orchestrating the entire carnage by sitting in their safe houses while innocent working class um, Bahujans, OBCs, are being led to take on their counterparts, the Muslims. So I think with this, I would like to, I mean, before taking the questions from the audience, I would like to pose a question like, uh, how do you see that you have in your article, in that specific article, you kind of want that, like the way Dalits have moved into Buddhism and Christianity and Islam, if secularists and the communists fail to accommodate the concerns of pertaining to the OBCs are not met by them, are not accommodated by them, they will certainly move forward to accept and accommodate Modi as their leader and make him prime minister. And after, I mean, within the decade of your prediction, that became truth. And now we are seeing a slow dismantling of the institutions and onslaught on critical voices, including the same secularists, including the same left scholars, including everybody that who kind of ignored what you have warned against. Now, how do you see that nothing has changed, even in the state where we come from? Uh, the seculars, I mean, the self-claimed seculars or the Congress continues to talk about the mobilizing the lower caste, including the BCs. Although they talk a lot, they are failing in implementing, and be it in the political accommodation, be it in reservations in employment and everything, on the even on the ongoing 42% of for the OBCs, they're not doing it. While despite making tall claims about it, like how do you see this warning still, even after 2 decades, is being ignored? How do you understand this? Like, what do you want to pose?
Yeah. Shall we go one by one, or you want to take other questions and
Yeah.
then?
We have a couple of questions, but like, yes, you can answer as we go.
Well, I wrote one more article in 2002 after Modi became chief minister, and he was campaigning that he was an OBC for the first time. Earlier, I didn't know. And by then, he took an OBC certificate by including his caste.
Right.
In central list, obviously, there were banias selling oil, but several banias took the OBC certificate in North India. So at that time, it was again in Hindu. the rise of Modi. I said, if this is the attitude, I think this man is likely to become a leader to whom the OBCs may very blindly tag on to, and then he may become prime minister. And these articles and several other articles I wrote around Babri Masjid, Sudarshan strategies. Now several of them similar articles in my recent book called The Clash of Cultures about Mohan Bhagwat, Modi and so on. See, one problem that more than Dalits, OBCs had historically was that they did not face untouchability and they gradually became middle rank farming community and artisanal communities. And they had their own gods and goddesses, which has its own worshipping systems. Therefore, even when the Dalits were getting into Christianity in coastal districts, even in Telangana or Kerala or Tamil Nadu, OBCs did not get into that. They did not realize how education, Sanskrit and other language education, is a critical tool for better life. They were mainly concerned about land. Shepherds are concerned about more sheep. And so we had another problem in Telangana with the Nizam rule. Their Urdu language was all over known for them up to Pakistan, Bangladesh, and it was a national language. Whereas the Telangana Dalits OBCs had a broken Telugu cum Urdu mixed language without even local communication possible. So, in that kind of scenario, there is a lingering anti-Muslim stronger tendency among OBCs, more than Dalits. This tendency was not properly understood by even the Congress, which was supporting the minority Muslims because of the partition and Muslim elite relationship, who were English educated equally with the Brahmins and Banyas. So the OBCs by Mandal type were not only willing to fight for their reservation, but also willing to go against Muslims. And RSS understood that and started mobilizing. So one front was working for the secular, somewhat educated front for OBC reservation, Mandal. Another front was going with the RSS Mandal Mandir issue, collecting bricks and so on and so forth. So I, as a person who came from the left movement and studied in an intensive way the entire Marxist Leninist literature as well, Mao's writings, I realized that these fellows are caste blind and they have not understood the native structure. So they are only parroting the language of Marx, Engels and Mao. So it doesn't go anywhere from there. So therefore, the warning was given, and Accidentally, it so happened the Congress began to collapse after Rajiv Gandhi's family capture of the power structure. Because of Indira Gandhi's death again, Congress did not allow Shudra OBC leaders to become prime minister from that space. So regional parties came. So until Kanshiram came into the field and gave a new hope, there was no visionary among OBC Shudras. Either they were in the Congress camp or in the regional parties with small idea of ruling the state like a feudal lord, or they were with the BJP RSS with the militant struggles. Naturally, that resulted what is the situation now. And my writings were not seriously studied by the left also. They actually told people not to study them. This is pushing us into caste identity. They were more comfortable with Dalit intellectuals who were writing about on Dalits with a lot of titles. Charan, you know, if you see the titles on Dalit, hundreds of them are there. So whether it is JNU, Delhi University, Bombay, IITs, my own Dalit friends, the only person who deviated from that in the recent past is Suraj Engde, who wrote on general caste, but again focuses on Dalit issue, caste matters and so on. So caste in world context also, he wrote another book now. But then his focus is on untouchability and Dalits. Whereas I started looking at the broader picture of Hinduism like Ambedkar. Ambedkar also talked about Mahars and Dalits, but he wrote extensively about the whole system. He reviewed Ramayana, Mahabharata, Vedas. No Dalit scholar later did such a broad critical analysis of Hindu order. Whereas starting from why I'm not a Hindu, post-Hindu India, and even Buffalo Nationalism, the Shudras, clash of cultures, Shudra rebellion, all these books of mine are basically on the entire Hindu structure, religion, production, society, not based on. So it is true that my voice was, though my articles appeared in mainstream papers, they were not seriously taken by Brahmin academics. They were treated as a kind of, marginal statements. Because, see, one of the problems is Ambedkar himself was treated as a marginal writer till 1990. Nobody used his books, nobody taught his philosophy. Now, because of Ambedkar and Phule, even my books are taught in the universities, even in political thought. But Ambedkar was not taught, leave alone Phule. So, in that atmosphere, my writings on religion and caste were treated as non-consequential. Now they see what is the importance of, and perhaps in future, after me, some more attention could be paid on my writing. That's every writer's fate. Even Ambedkar had that problem. Yeah.